Welcome to Tradespoon. My name is Vlad Karpel. I'm CEO and founder. Welcome to Tradespoon. My name is Vlad Karpel. I'm CEO and founder of both companies. And today we're going to have a weekly strategy roundtable, where we talk about current market conditions and answer any questions you might have about your subscription, how to hedge your portfolio, how to deal with the volatility or uncertainty associated with the current macro and microeconomic headwinds. Disclosures are very important. I'm going to go through specific trade ideas and signals. So it's very important to understand the risk associated with trading stock and options. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not here to show you. I'm not here to give you an advice. I'm here to show you what I do in my own account based on my own risk tolerance level for general education and information purposes only. All right. Before we jump into trading psychology, let's talk about current market conditions. Again, the main headline news or two headline news. One is obviously the war in Middle East, the war with Iran, and inability for the oil tankers to go through Arabian Sea, Strait of Hormuz, and potentially Persian Gulf, Red Sea. They're also targeting Red Sea potentially. So based on the headline news, whether oil reserves are being tapped or de-escalation, you have this volatile markets. This week, S&P retested 200-day moving average, right? SPX retested 200-day moving average and got very close within, let's say, striking distance, 1%, 1.5% of November, October lows. So the long-term trend, I think, is still intact, right? But I would watch this level on October lows, November lows, and the 200-day moving average. We did not take out this year lows, but you can definitely see that there's not a lot of buyers, and bears are short-term, medium-term are still in control. Also, 10-year yield, right? Fear of inflation, that the prolonged oil prices definitely will impact consumer discretionary budgets, right? How much money they can spend if the oil and gas prices are going higher. That means the economy will slow down. There's some calculations for every 10 for every $10 move in oil, GDP drops by 1% or 0.5%. So definitely, the longer the war continues, or at least the longer the Strait of Hormuz is closed and being bombed by whether it's drones or sea drones, right? They have these air drones, sea drones, then yield is going to continue going higher. We briefly got to almost 430. Today was 428. So we're getting to the 430 level, and dollar is actually right at the 100 level, right? Slightly higher, but right at the 100 level. So that would be kind of important levels to watch. If dollar continues to rise, and if interest rates continue to rise, and crude oil continues to rise, right, then market can only stay neutral for so long, right? It will follow the bond market and currency market and energy markets. And as long as uncertainty persists, I would consider still hedging your portfolio. What else is interesting? Bitcoin, right? Riskier asset classes are actually making new highs, right? If you look at the past few weeks, Bitcoin, kind of no new signal. It's still at 75,000, but it's not making new lows, so that's positive, right? And same could be said about software. It's not making new highs, but it's also not taking out the lows, right? Kind of no new signal. So that's positive, right? Because these are the asset classes that led the market to the downside, and they were extremely oversold, right? Bitcoin was down 50%, software is down 35%. They're all trading in bear market territory. It was very bad chart patterns, but we're not making new lows on the negative news, negative headline news, which is, Peter, good morning, which is, positive, right? I think that's positive. Obviously, I don't think software and Bitcoin will hold the market, right? So currency, and if I have to pick top 3 charts, I would look at oil, bond, and currency, right? Your dollar, your 10-year yield, I mean the entire yield curve, or dislocations inside of the credit markets, and I would watch the oil prices, right? As long as oil is close to 100, markets are not going to rally. So that's the view on the market. If you look at the stock forecast toolbox, right, our main model for 6 months prediction, right? In live trading room, I was talking about 6 months prediction. We're not in oversold levels, right? So we're still, especially if you look at industrials, right, that led the market, they just start selling off, right? So industrials, well, banks already been in downtrend for a while, but industrials just start selling off. Consumer staples started selling off, right? Utilities. So there's still a lot of asset classes that potentially can continue going lower. Consumer discretionary, not oversold. So that's why if you're looking for the bottom, you probably too early to find it, right? And definitively say, well, we're close to the bottom, right? I wouldn't say that. I would say oversold conditions are probably at around 620 to 630, right? This is the model that runs on March 1st. It trains on the long-term data. It didn't know, there's no input into the Middle East prices since March 1st. So even before the war started, it already saw that oversold conditions would be at 626. Was obviously prolonged war in Middle East, this could be lower. But at 626, I would say, okay, long term, we're probably oversold. At 660 or 670, we're not oversold yet. Renata, NIO, electrical vehicles. I think we had some movement in electrical vehicles. NIO is up, right? I think this was earnings, right? So, I mean, the chart, it does look good. You have these long-term consolidations, right? You have moved to the upside. You can trade everything, right? If you want to do long-term investment, you probably want it to clear $8. If NIO clears $8, I would be bullish on NIO. Here, you can day trade anything, right? People were, Coinbase was a signal this week. Palantir was a signal this week. These are all broken charts, but you can trade them, right? You can definitely trade them. You can say, I would say, okay, your probably 450 is your strike, so 447, 440. So I would say, okay, if it breaks below 440, that's my exit level. But next level is $8, right? So you have a lot more room to the upside than to the downside, but you have to keep these tight stop levels, right, to make sure you're not over trade. So support is 450. I mean, resistance is 8. I would look at the Gamma, and IO is a popular stock, very liquid. Let's see if there's any so support, resistance. The resistance is, we are at, what are we trading at? 587. So the first resistance is $6, right? So you need to clear $6. That's the highest gamma and positioning, right? Once it clears 6, the next level would be 7, and then actually 10. So I would consider maybe trimming, if you're long, maybe trim some at $6, and if it gets above 6, right, by 2-3%, let's say 620, 630, then next level is 7, and I would trim more at 7. Renat, let me know if it makes sense. Right, but gamma exposure positioning, especially in liquid names that have, we were looking, let's see, let me log in. Let's look at the position. Okay. So if I look at NIO, most of the position were March, actually June. A lot of people are building June positions. So let's look at June. NIO, well, first March, I would look at the March, but that expires in a week. So it's something to keep in mind that these hedges will go away. I mean, you have high, very high interest at $4, right? So you're 40,000, right? So it's going to have a hard time breaking through the 4 until March expiration, right? But March is going to expire, and next level is in June. Where's June? Okay. So in June, I mean, you have 350, 4, huge interest, $3 open interest, right? So a lot of people are buying puts, either or selling short puts, right? Very high open interest. Obviously, there is a lot of open interest in 15 strike, right, and 10 strike. But in terms of overhead resistance, yeah, for 550 here, you don't only have a 6 strike. But I mean, 7, right? Definitely 754,000. But a lot of people, think we can get to 100 to 10, right? To 10 or 15 by, by June. It depends on market conditions. If market reaches the bottom, yeah. NIO is very, very volatile stock and could ride higher. All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Renata. So how do we help on Tradespoon? So we have different parts of the site. So you have free education, right? Getting started guide, learning center, right? You can look at our workshop recordings. You can look at some guides, short-term, long-term guides, trading guide. We have webinar recordings, right? You can look at our live trading recordings, strategy room recordings, videos. What else is there? Support, right? I encourage you to schedule one-on-one consultation with Keith. Keith Harwood is our chief, investment officer. His, his experience is, he's a market, used to be on the floor trading futures, options. He was part of the hedge fund. So he has 20 years of experience of managing and trading his own money. He also does coaching, right? So you can schedule consultation. First consultation is free. I encourage you to schedule that and to talk about your own trading plan, your own goals, right? We're all different. We have different relationship with money, how much money we're managing, and it would be beneficial if you can, schedule a meeting with Keith and go over your own goals, how to build your own trading plan, how to hedge, what's the appropriate number of positions or risk can be done in your portfolio, and how to take advantage of any of our subscriptions. So that's the free content on the website. I encourage you to sign up. Right, if you don't have an account on Tradespoon or you forgot your password, log in, get a new password, click on forget password to reset your password, and we send weekly videos and weekly emails, right? There we talk about market conditions, some of the trade ideas, and this is also you can get uh, um, for free. In terms of paid subscriptions, I would think about maybe either 2 or 3 areas, right? One is the tools, right? So we talked about Stock Forecast Toolbox, right? I use it. You can use for futures. You can type in any stock ticker and look at the 6 months, 10 days, and 1 hour prediction, depending if you're day trading or short-term trading, long-term trading. Right, you get your support and resistance levels. You get your overall trend in the market. You can see, okay, in the next 6 months, can we actually? Nothing has changed as of March 1st. We'll rerun this on March 1st. Depending if we're not going to take out the 626, then the trend stays, right? That we at some point we will make new highs, right? If we don't take out the lows, that's usually what happens. So very useful tool. I encourage you to consider. You can add your own. What happened? You can add your own symbols. Let's try this again. Yeah. So you can add your symbols, model provided signals today. So CAF, Dow, Valero Energy. So I put them in my watch list, right? You can create your own watch list under your account. It'll tell you the predicted low, predicted high, right? And where the stock is trading, right? CF, 126. We're at 127. Um, that's the prior low. This is maybe a good entry point, right? If you think about CF, if you think oil prices are going to continue going higher and uncertainty persists, then CF is a possible trade, right? And you can see him an active trader, right? Valero Energy, CF Industries, and Dow Chemical, right? Anything that's related to energy is on strong uptrend. And every time market rallies, these stocks will pull back. Every time stock market sells off, these stocks will rally, right? So that's Stock Forecast Toolbox. You can go to Company Screener and say, okay, as of March 1st, which sectors were in uptrend? You can see software was on downtrend. Some of the hardware like WDC, right? Peripherals, Western Digital, they're strong uptrend. Semiconductors were in strong uptrend. Energy was in uptrend, right? Energy actually was in strong uptrend even before the escalation in Middle East, right? So you can find sectors, you can drill into the sectors to say, okay, which one were actually in a strong uptrend, right? So like Halliburton, Schlumberger were definitely in one of the strongest uptrend. So that's Stock Forecast Toolbox. We have screeners. We also have research, right? You can look at seasonality. March usually kind of could be a weak month, right? Neutral months. April and May are usually, and June in the past few years, are strong months. So from seasonality point of view, maybe end of March is where you reach the bottom, and then starting next earnings cycle and next expiration cycle, but then potentially relief rally, right? Well, assuming you have some positive headline news to support that. And you can look at the probability calculator, right? For the stock, like spiders, where is the support and where is resistance, right? 660, 650, maybe you want to start thinking about buying. 673, 680, maybe this is the time to sell, right? So that's those are the tools: Stock Forecast Toolbox, research, webinars. And in terms of live portfolios, Elite Circle, right? So you can go to Elite Circle, right? Look at the last 7 days, and you can see different trades, combination of both option and stock trades, right? Sometimes I buy stock, sometimes options. So last trades were QQQ put spread. I've been trading around QQQ put spread. I closed half of my QQQ put spread, half of my hedge. I did Oracle Iron Condor, geared toward earnings announcement. So I sold premium on call side and put spread because VIX is elevated, so you get paid to take that risk. And a lot of active traders or day traders, they're selling premium, right? Because oil prices are, there's extreme volatility. So some people selling put spread, some people selling call spread, some people selling both. So this is an example of the earnings, which same strategy you can apply to anything that's highly volatile. Um, energy, right? So I'm long XLE energy through the XLE, and I'm hedging my portfolio with SH. I'm hedging my portfolio with SH. So if you're not comfortable trading options, you can buy SH as a hedge, right? You probably want to be long and short the market at the same time. What else? So that's Elite Circle. You get access to our live trading room, morning bell and closing bell. I encourage you to participate. You have access to our recordings, right? Webinars. So I encourage you to watch the webinars if you can make it live. You can see my orders positions. You can enter, Discord or phone number and be able to get messages every time I trade. They're synced with my real account, right? This is a live account where you get instantaneous messages. And when would I consider exiting SH? When the headline news basically says that the energy crisis is coming to an end, So, usually these sell-offs, I usually wait, and not just the headline news where Trump comes out and says, "Hey guys, we're going to escort the ships and provide insurance," and the market rallies, right? It's a short-term kind of a fake rally, because if you can enforce that, then it's just a short-term relief rally, which we saw last week, this week. You need to see evidence that the ships can make through the Strait of Hormuz, right? Not just Iranian ships or Russian ships, right? But ships from Kuwait and Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, right? Those ships are not being targeted, and and South Korea can actually get oil. But until then, until there is a satellite evidence that the ships can make through the Strait of Hormuz, I would keep SH. You can, market obviously is going to be volatile, right? We've seen on the positive news, we were at 68.50 this week. So I would be long and short the market. Right now I'm market neutral because I think market is oversold, right? Market is oversold, so I'm market neutral. But at 6,800, I build more bearish position. If we get to 6,500, I'll build more bullish positions. And right now we're kind of rolling over already. Again, SPX got to 67.33 and rolled to 66.70. Any questions? Joseph, thank you. So yeah, usually these crises end like COVID, right? Trump said, "Oh, we're going to do this stimulus, we're going to do that stimulus, we're going to print money and this and that," but they didn't do it, and it ended actually end of March when Powell came out and say, "Listen, we're going to print as much money as it takes to, make sure the economy is supported," right? So only then, which coincidentally was overlapped with the expiration, March expiration, market recovered. So I think it'll be the same kind of a recipe. After March expiration, if somebody, not Trump, but somebody who's in charge of these satellite images says, "I see more ships going through," it doesn't have to be a full recovery, but at least some ships from Saudi Arabia or Bahrain are going through the Arabian Sea and through the Persian Gulf. Well, then you can close your SH. Coinbase resistance was a signal, not support resistance. Well, 200, right? It's obviously 200 is a known number. There's a very high open interest and 200, right? If I go to Coinbase, let's look at where if you look at the Coinbase, you can see 200, but it's kind of evenly spread out, right? So 200, then every 10, 15 strikes, it's put wall is 200, call wall is at 250. It's a pretty narrow range. Most contracts are in March, actually, which is interesting. So be careful with Coinbase. As March this expires and March next week expires, you don't see a lot of positioning. So that will open the door wide open, either for relief rally, which we could get to 225 to 50, right? Or we retest the lows, right? And it's the same thing with Bitcoin, right? You can see Bitcoin, I mean, it's still a weak recovery. We didn't even close this gap, right? We didn't get to 85,000. So a lot of position in Coinbase, just, but they're going to expire next week, and then it's an open field, right? If there's a positive headline news and risk on, I think Coinbase and Bitcoin might, get to the 80, 85 level. But if there's a headline negative news, it's going to pull the rest of the stocks, right? Since I said I'm not going to close SH until, I see satellite images supporting improvement in the traffic, not just Iran and Russian tankers, illegal tankers, but, legal tankers, then I would not close SH. I would not be buying Bitcoin. But, if you're a trader, you can trade anything, right? You can trade at these support and resistance levels. You don't care about headline news. You just care about support and resistance levels. And that's different. All right. Any other questions? All right. So outside of Elite Circle, premium portfolio is where I trade, just once a week. On Sunday, I have a position, like CF was last week, now XLE. You can obviously, subscribe just to premium service. You can buy, options. I do option spreads. You can do just stock or option trade. We do have actually another, we partner with Avantgarde. You guys seen the Avantgarde. So we do have marketing relationship with Avantgarde. It's disclosed. But, if you're looking for a platform to trade and test some of these ideas, I do encourage you to have different accounts for different strategies, because if you subscribe to different strategies or different services and they're all in one and the market sells off, well, you don't know which strategy works, which does not. So I encourage you to be very diligent in your trading plan, in your journaling, and actually keep in segregated accounts for different strategies. So if you open up account on Avantgarde, right, using this link, you can actually we'll refund you and sign up for any of the Yellow Tunnel services. We'll refund you the first 3 months. So if this is something you're interested, in addition to talking to Keith, and you can talk to Keith about that as well, then, that's the link. I put it inside of the questions. You guys can see it. I can put it in chat. Where's the chat? Yeah, I'll put it in chat too. But that's the link to get, basically commission free for trading options. You can talk to brokers. Every time you place a trade, you can bounce your ideas, live brokers. They give you the discount on that service as well. And this is how much savings you potentially can make if you sign up. All right, so that's the Yellow Tunnel. What else? Any other questions? All right, if there's no other questions, I would keep an eye on crude oil. I would keep an eye on dollar. Probably dollar is one of the most important charts. As long as dollar continues to grind higher, I would not close SH. As long as 10-year yield continues to get above 430, I would also not do that. So that's something to keep an eye on. All right, guys. Thank you very much and have a great day. Enjoy your weekend.